Which genre you like better to work with?
Well, you know, for myself personally, it's hard to say. Thrillers are relatively easy. A thriller is short. The main characters are in danger all the time in a good thriller.
So the concept is straightforward.
It's very straightforward. All you have to do is to keep the pressure on, page after page, until you've written 100,000 words. So in some ways, it's a simple challenge. And a long book like The Pillars of the Earth or World Without End is a different kind of challenge, because you tell the whole story of somebody's life, and that's very different.
Considering that, you know, you obviously enjoyed reading Pillars of the Earth, and considering its success, what took you so long to write World Without End, which is in a similar style?
It was partly that we didn't realize at first what a success The Pillars of the Earth was going to be.
But we are talking about an 18 years
18
gap.
years, yeah.
No.
Well, at some point at the beginning of that period, there was no thought of a sequel, but pretty soon readers started to ask me for a sequel. And the reason it took me a long time is that at first I couldn't think what the sequel would be. A sequel is usually another story about the same people, but at the end of The Pillars of the Earth, all the characters are very old or dead.
Yeah.
So I couldn't write another story about the same people. So I had to think, what would count as a sequel? What did people really want when they asked me, those people in the bookshops and the libraries, when they said to me, when are you going to write another book like The Pillars of the Earth? What did they really mean? And it took me a while to figure that out. And eventually I decided that they wanted another long novel that was centered on a medieval monastery. And I decided to write about the Black Death.
Okay. In what sense do you find the Black Death as a defining period, a defining event in human history?
Writing about the Black Death appealed to me, first of all, because it's one of the greatest crises in the history of the human race. It killed at least a third of the population of Europe. There has never been a plague like that we know about in history. So it's a huge drama. So I liked the idea of creating a group of characters living in a town with their worries and concerns and ambitions and their loves and hates. And then in the middle of the story, bang, a plague comes and it kills one person in 3. I thought that was very dramatic.
As if a meteor has...
Yes, exactly. But there's something else about the Black Death, which is that it's a moment in the intellectual history of Europeans. It's kind of a turning point. Up until the Black Death, medicine and knowledge in general was based on revelation. People would say, we only understand things that God reveals to us. After the Black Death, people became more scientific. People lost faith in the church's ability to tell them what the world was really like. And so science became much more important. And particularly medical people, doctors and midwives and apothecaries in the Middle Ages started to have a more scientific approach to medicine. And that absolutely changed the history of the European people.
You wrote Pillars of the Earth, that 18 years later, World Without End. Are we to expect 18 years more for a new saga?
Well, I'd like to write a third book about Kingsbridge. I haven't given it any serious thought. I haven't started work on it. I don't know what it would be about, but I would quite like to do it. And I hope I'll be able to do it a little sooner than 18 years.
How would you define a good novel?
I think what we all love in a novel is the feeling of being lost in it. And for me, a novel has to do 2 things. Create an imaginary world and draw the reader into that world. And some novels fail because the imaginary world isn't adequate. It's not fully realized. We don't feel its reality. And some novels fail because you don't care about it. There are lots of very skilled novelists who create an elaborate imaginary world that you believe in totally, but you don't give a damn because the characters don't involve your emotions. So I think good novels do those two things. And if they do those two things, so that we believe in the imaginary world and we care about it, then we're drawn into it. And that's when you feel, if you're reading on the plane, you feel disappointed when the plane lands. Because you think, oh no, now I've got to stop reading. Or you're reading in bed and it's midnight and you've got to put the light out because you've got an early meeting. And you say, wow, I wish I could read some more. And that's what, we all like that when we're reading. We love to be that involved in a book. That's the measure of, for me, that's the measure of the quality of the novel.
For which of your novels